We've all been there before. We moved to a new house, we came to a new location, and it all can be very daunting when you don't know what to do. But today I'm going to go through the absolute basics that you need to know as a beginner when it comes to do-it-yourself lawn care. Before we dive into the specifics of lawn care maintenance, we've got to assess what we're working with. We want to take a close look at our yard, and we want to make sure that we know the key details of each aspect of it. First up, we want to look at the grass type. What kind of grass do we have? Because depending on where you live in the country, there are only certain types of grasses that are going to grow in your region. You've got to be able to identify whether you've got a warm season grass like what I've got, Bermuda, or if you've got zoysia or St. Augustine or centipede. Those are all warm season grasses. Maybe you've got a cool season grass like tall fescue, annual ryegrass. On my channel, I'm going to be focusing on recommendations for Bermuda grass, since that's what I've got. But there are many tips that I'm going to share with you because they will work for any type of grass. You've just got to know that based on your grass type, when you need to do a certain technique or when you shouldn't do a certain technique. When you're doing an assessment of your lawn, you need to find the problem areas. You want to take a walk around, take some notes, whether you've got a lot of weeds in a certain area, or if you've got brown patches or bare patches, or if you've got an infestation of insects. You need to make sure you know what you're working with. If you find issues with certain areas, then you want to take immediate action. Also, you want to look for uneven terrain. Maybe you've got some slopes or some drainage issues. If you've got areas where there's poor drainage and water is pooling up in a certain area, it can make it very difficult for grasses to grow. This last summer, I ended up installing a French drain near my driveway because there was a really big area of rainwater that would pool up every time it would rain. And so that oversaturation would make it to where my grass was just not growing well. All that water nearly killed off all of my grass in that area. Since then, I installed this French drain. The grass has been able to grow back and be healthy again. You can also have hills and slopes that will cause runoff and erosion of soil. It can make it very difficult for grass to grow there. Next up, we've got to get an estimate on the total square footage of your lawn, because you've got to know how much product to put down in your yard whenever you're putting down an application of fertilizer or if you're doing a herbicide application. Typically, the standard measurements are going to be in square feet. There are a few different ways that you can determine this. If you've got a really small lot, it may be easy enough for you just to walk it out. But if you're dealing with a much larger area in thousands of square feet, I suggest going to a website like measuremylawn.com. There's also another one that I recommend, Map Developers. It does a very accurate, precise calculation of your lawn. All you got to do is go on there and start drawing up some lines around your area where your grass is located in your lawn, and that's your lawn size. Now, this is something that is so simple, it's so basic, but water and sunlight is the most essential elements to growing anything. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, but as you're walking around your yard and you're assessing it, make sure that you look for areas of shade, because certain grasses, like Bermuda, they don't do well in shade. They love full sunlight. So if your grass is struggling in an area, that could be a reason too. We all know that water is an essential element of life, but how much is too much water on your lawn? As a general rule of thumb, you need about 1 inch of water per week. It's much easier to maintain a proper watering schedule when you've got an irrigation system. But if you don't have an irrigation system, you might just have to pull out the water hose from time to time and give your yard a nice long soak. If the grass blades are feeling a bit crunchy under your feet whenever you're walking along in the grass, and those grass blades don't just bounce back up, it's time to hydrate. That's a sure sign that your grass needs more water. And the best thing to do is to do some deep waterings at least 3 to 4 times a week. And you want to do them for a certain amount of time that, again, gets you to that 1 inch of water per week. So you might want to factor this into your budget because watering can be very expensive. I hate to break it to you, but you're going to have to mow, and most likely more often than you want. I know some people don't enjoy mowing all that much. I get it. But to me, there's nothing better than the smell of fresh cut grass. Since you're going to be mowing more often, you need to make sure that you've got a good mower. So this is an investment. A good mower is going to provide you with a better cut and a more enjoyable lawn mowing experience. Regular mowing and proper cutting height is important for healthy lawns. Depending on the different grass type that you've got, like Bermuda and zoysia, likes to be kept short. Other grass types like to be kept a little higher, so make sure you stay in those optimal ranges, and cutting at least once a week. The lower that you want to cut the grass, the more often that you're going to have to cut it, but you want to make sure that you stick to the rule of thirds. Now, the rule of thirds means that you're going to never cut off more than a third of the blade of grass every time you mow. So it's better to have more frequent mowings rather than just one drastic hack job that you're going to do coming in like once a month or something like that. But one thing that I do recommend is to alternate the mowing direction that you use each time you mow, and that's going to help avoid any ruts that may develop over time. Typically, your mower height is going to be listed somewhere on the mower, but if you can't find that, then here's a way that you can do it. During the peak growing seasons, like in late spring or early summer, you're going to make sure that you're getting out there a couple times a week. That grass is really going to grow fast, especially when there's regular rainfall. You want to stay on top of it before it gets too high. And mowing less often means that you're going to be removing more of the blade of the grass than you should, and it's going to cause stress, and it's going to leave your grass looking pretty rough and more susceptible to injury and disease. Now, to maintain a healthy lawn, you need to make sure that you've got the right lawn care equipment. Like I mentioned already, you're going to need a mower. I also suggest that you buy a spreader and probably a sprayer. Depending on your yard, you may need a blower and a trimmer. Most likely you will. But I know that upfront cost is going to be big. And if you're doing it yourself, you're going to want to invest in some decent tools for the job. I have a lot of concrete around my property, so I invested in an edger and a blower a long time ago. But having the right tools is really going to help us get the job done a lot quicker and a lot easier. When you look at bags of fertilizer, there are going to be 3 numbers on there. There's going to be an N, there's going to be a P, there's going to be a K. The N stands for nitrogen. That's going to promote growth and color. Phosphorus helps roots and plant development. The potassium is for drought resistance. Now, always follow the application guidelines that are on the bag of fertilizer, because too much can burn your grass, but if you put too little, you're not going to see good results. There's just so much to talk about here, and so I want to make sure that it's easy for you. That's why you should follow my lawn care guide. You can check out the link in the description below. It's free. It covers all the products that you need throughout the year to make sure that your lawn is looking great. Now, if you're brand new to all this, make sure that you always read the label. Use what's on the bag rate listed on the fertilizer. Typically, you'll see that on the back of the bag. And then you can apply the correct amount to your yard. I still have to do this sometimes where if I'm not sure exactly how much product to put out in the yard, I will come in at a low rate, I'll do a test run, and I'll do maybe a section of my yard, maybe a third or fourth of the yard with a third or fourth of the bag. And then I'll make sure that I haven't emptied it out too quickly or too slowly. But the worst thing that you can do is to put down too much too fast. But most bags will have the common spreaders listed out, and it'll tell you exactly what setting needs to be there. Insects like grubs, ants, armyworms, there's all sorts of other insects that will find their way into our yards. And if they're left unchecked, they'll wreak havoc. Even if you're mowing consistently and putting down fertilizer regularly, insects can easily still destroy all that hard work you've done. I see this all too often. You're doing all the right things, and then you see a large area of your yard just start dying off. Once an infestation takes hold, your options are really going to be limited. And so that's why you need to be diligent with insect management. If you're using an insecticide on a regular basis, it's really going to reduce the chances of any of this happening. Not only that, these products have things that are going to keep out ticks and all sorts of other insects that get on you or your kids or your animals. So it's good to put it down preemptively. Now, weed control is at the top of everybody's minds when it comes to a healthy looking lawn. Weeds can spread extremely quick. And so you want to make sure that you walk around regularly, check out your grass, look out for those weeds to see if they come up, and then you can just hit them with a post-emergent treatment. If you have a small enough yard and you've got a lot of weeds, the quickest and most effective way is to go to the local store and get you a hose-in sprayer treatment. One that's got a long list of weed control, but for the long term, I suggest you buying a better product, one that's going to treat your weeds specifically rather than just trying to guess at it. It's going to be a more efficient way, mostly a cost-effective way that you can knock them out. Just be sure that whenever you're looking for herbicides that you choose a product that is specific for your grass type. We all know that we can treat weeds after the fact with a post-emergent product, but the best way to handle weeds is with a good pre-emergent treatment. This is going to stop them from developing in the first place. Unlike a post-emergent treatment where you're having to spray and target these existing weeds after they've come up, Pre-emergents act as a barrier to block any new ones from coming up and sprouting up. So applying a pre-emergent means that you're going to be a step ahead from all those weeds. This means that you're going to spend less time and effort going into removing and trying to treat those weeds after the fact, and possibly damaging your lawn in the process. If you're unsure about what a pre-emergent is or why it's so important, you should check out this video right here, and we'll see you in the next one.